So, Ryan, let's begin first and foremost with personnel changes because I do think there need to be personnel changes. And in some instances, it's because guys aren't getting the job done. But in other instances, just because playing these guys more is going to make your team better. And that's what we're going to discuss first. And I think the first one is one that I wrote an article about yesterday, and that is putting Chris Tyree in at running back. That to me, now he is the number one running back. Let me be more specific. He started last Saturday, and because they started in 21 personnel. He has played a lot of snaps. What we're more talking about is making him the focal point of your offense, of your run game from a touches standpoint. And that has not been the case. He's had 9 carries in 2 games, and 2 of them are handing the ball off the end of the half to run the clock out. And so that is where we're going to be at. Chris Tyree right now needs to become, and we'll talk about why, but he needs to become a focal point of your offense starting yesterday. No, actually, today will be the first day of Cal prep. So starting today, it needs to start today.
Brian, he's still the most frustrating, confusing usage guy. Like I just can't wrap my mind around it, right? Because when you're not blocking well, right? So when you're not blocking well and there's some inconsistencies just from your offensive line in general, wouldn't you want the guy that you have a larger margin for error for, right? Like, because if he's able to just break a little crease, then he's going to create a big play, right? And I think that you would want to feature that guy when maybe you're not blocking the best you possibly can, because there's ways that you can manipulate space and get him in space. And they've done that a little bit. I mean, like in the first game, they ran some jet stuff to him, but that was basically all they ran with him. Right. There's ways that you can get him one-on-one in the passing game. I mean, they've tried to do it. I think they ran like a little option route last game where they caught the ball.
It was just a little now screen is what they did. That's all it was. And he caught the ball behind the line, made a dude miss, and picks up 9 yards.
All I know is when you're not getting a substantial amount of push up front and not maintaining blocks, I want a guy like him that can make you look good even when things aren't maybe going as well up front as you want, right? Because the thing about Audric Estime, I love Audric Estime. I think he's going to be a fantastic runner for Notre Dame. But he does need blocking up front to be an effective runner. He needs to get downhill. He needs to get his momentum there. Chris Tyree can make you look good when things aren't perfect sometimes. Sure. Like that's what he can do, right? So he is absolutely a focal point. I need him to be involved in the run game, in the pass game, in the kick return game. I know we're talking about an offensive specific, but he needs his touches. It is a paramount thing because you need to supplement touches in the run. I mean, because Tyler Buckner's out now. So you need to supplement those touches in the run game somewhere, right? So let's make it easy. Let's supplement it to Chris Tyree, the most dynamic player on our offense. I think it's easy.
Right. And I think that helps the other guys too. I think that helps Audric Estime. I think that helps him because now there's not that pressure of, hey, you're our guy. I want to see them do what they've done this past week, which is more 21 personnel. But let Chris kind of be that lead back at times. And do things where you're using him. Let him run some of the inside zone stuff. Let him run the counters. Let him run the outside zone track that Notre Dame wants to get going. And you can also do those things with Audric Estime because, as we said, you need to play around to your players' strengths, but they're taking that way too far right now in that they're only doing certain things with Chris Tyree and they're only doing certain things with Audric Estime, which makes it really easy for defenses to kind of know when this guy's in the game, here's what they're doing. And then based on how Notre Dame is lining up with their alignments, which we'll get into a little bit, you kind of know where they're going with the ball, and that's problematic, right? So on top of some of the other run game fixes, I think Chris Tyree being more of a focal point. Now, does that mean that Chris Tyree needs to touch the ball 20 times a game? No, that's not what we're saying. But he needs to touch it. He needs to carry it more than 9 times over a 2-game span with 2 of them not really being real carries. I mean, you're just here, run, and I'm sure they'd like him to rip off a 60-yard run there, but you're not running that play thinking, gee, I think on this inside zone play, we might crease it for 60 yards, now that he's there. So I think that's one change that needs to make. I think that help, like I said, that'll help Audric Estime. I think it'll help the line get some confidence going. And obviously Chris needs to execute in those situations too. But I think the opportunities have to be there. You have to get him more involved. And then that also makes him more – here's the thing, right? Get him more involved in the normal runs, and now all of a sudden teams can't be as anticipating, okay, let's guard against the jet, the screens, the wheels, because that's all they're using him for. So
Right.
when that's all you're using him for, it's a lot easier to game plan how to stop him. When you know on one snap he could just hit you with an inside zone, on the next snap you may boom him out. Boom is the motion. Boom him out and throw him a screen. Or even if you don't boom him out, just let him run a screen from the backfield, right? Because he is faster than the linebackers. You can use him now more on screens if he's a greater part of the run of the offense, because now you're not keying that.
Right.
And so that's then Ryan, I just made a note. That's something that we have to add to the pass game thing that we had talked about before. We forgot to add to our pre-game or pre-show notes. But those are things I think you can all do. And then that takes some of the pressure off Audric Estime. And now Audric can kind of slowly start to build into the role that you want him to have. And hopefully by then the offensive line is getting going a little bit more too.
I like that you mentioned 21 personnel, because we already talked about it, right? You're not going to run quarterback power read. You're not going to run just zone read a ton. But what you can, Brian, is that if you're running out of with the two backs in the game, you can supplement those touches, right? Because you can still run the jet with Chris Tyree and then give the power look to Audric Estime off of that read, right? You can still do things where, hey, inside zone to Audric Estime, now you have Chris Tyree coming around on a little swing, so he's basically the outside run. Like, you can supplement.
It's your version of triple option is what it is, Ryan.
100%. And it's not going to look the same as it did with Tyler Buckner, but it's still the same conceptual things, right? Like the threat for the inside and out are still there, which is vital, I think, for this offense, especially because we're going to talk more about Drew Pine later, but Drew Pine without the running threat that Tyler Buckner is, things are going to get a little more condensed, right? So using the speed of Chris Tyree to open things up horizontally a little bit and get guys out of the box and continue to have numbers games, I think that's vital. So I love the idea of 21 personnel. I think that if not featured, because you can't run it exclusively, but it should be a heavy mix in the run game. In my opinion.
Well, one thing I like is if you here's something I like, because again, I'm not running power read with Drew Pine. I'm not. But here's what I can do. I can have Tyree in the slot to the left or Braden Lindsey, and then I can have Audric Estime to my left, and then I can motion that guy and I can run my power read option. And then you can go back to, you're going back to old school spread stuff. And you're not running the quarterback, but you're read, shovel. Remember how Utah used to do that back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Dan Mullen was the OC. That's still a concept. You're running power, but now you're doing it with a shovel pass, and where you're still getting that action. And so, to me, that's where some of the creativity needs to get from. Where you say, hey, how can we supplement this and still get our guys touches? To where now Tyree and Estime or Lindsey and Estime are still options. Or here's a thought: go 11 personnel and have it be Chris Tyree as the shovel option. There's all types of different things you can do, and it's one play. It's one play that you're running a lot of different ways, and you're going to hear that theme here in a little bit.